Oh, hello, everybody. This is George Fisher, and we have a very special guest that is talking to us today, and it is Maxey Scherr. Maxey, have I got your name right?
Hi, George. My name's Maxey Scherr.
Scherr. Okay. Well, they told me to say Shay, and then I was like, well, it doesn't sound like that. It's not spelled like that. So I'm like, okay. So how are you today? How are things going in Texas? You guys have a primary coming up.
Things are going well. I'm actually in San Antonio today. I was in Austin yesterday, spoke at the Texas Democratic Women's Convention, and I was in the Rio Grande Valley before. So lots and lots of traveling in this great big state, and everything's going extremely well.
You're running for the United States Senate. Is that correct?
Yes, running against John Cornyn. It's time that we send that man home for sure.
Isn't that the truth? Let me ask you a question. This morning in the newspaper, they were talking about that the number one drug lord in the world was arrested this morning in Mexico, and you guys are right on the border. Is the war on drugs working? Is it succeeding in Texas? What's it really like?
Well, I come from a border town, born and raised in a border town. Fourth-generation Texan. I'm from El Paso. And, you know, I grew up at a time when there was not a border wall between the two countries, and it was just fine, and it is still just fine now. I don't think that there's all these discussions about the war on drugs and the war on crime and the war on border towns and how we need to militarize the border. But the real war that I see going on is the war that's been waged on working people, the war that's been waged on women and children, the war that's been waged on immigrants, and that's the war that I'm running to fight. I want to make sure that regular people are put first and that we stop using scare tactics. For far too long, we have people like John Cornyn and now Ted Cruz using scare tactics to talk about all this crime in Mexico and how it's going to leak over to the United States, and crime's going to come over, and drugs are going to come over, and all these quote-unquote bad guys are going to come over, and how immigrants coming over who are trying to feed their families are criminals. And at the end of the day, I think it's all hogwash, and I think it's all baloney. And it's time that we talk about stuff that's really happening. In El Paso, for example, we have been consistently rated as one of the safest cities in America, as the safest city in America for several years now, in fact. And I'm steps away from Juarez, Mexico. So, you know, what really matters to people are how do they make their lives work, and that's why I'm fighting to be a voice for people who need to make their lives work and stop with all of the scare tactics.
Do you think that we should, let's just stay on drugs for a second. Do you think we should legalize marijuana?
You know, that's not one of my big things I'm running for, and I've been asked that as I've been traveling around. I seem to have the opinion, and it seems to me that the war on drugs, like you just discussed, and marijuana has equated to an unequal criminalization towards minorities. So we see a very, very high population of Latinos and African Americans being put in jail for marijuana, whereby you see other people getting free and not even convicted of much more horrible crimes. So, yes, we need a decriminalization of marijuana. We also need to make sure that medicinal use is available. And the big difference between me and the guys who are in Washington, D.C. representing Texas is my door's open for always. I mean, whether it's as an attorney or as a mother or as a human being, I'm always open to discuss and learn about every side available. And it's a conversation that we need to have in Washington, D.C. We need to talk about why so many young minority people are being incarcerated for drugs, and what can we do to fix it.
Why did you decide to run for the Senate?
I'm running for the Senate because I'm very sick and tired and disgusted and frustrated with what's going on. You know, I am a little bit of background about me. I'm a single mom. I got pregnant at 21. I'm from a border town, like I told you. I have diverse family backgrounds that include, Jewish roots, Middle Eastern roots. I have Latino members in my family. My son is African American. My mom passed away from multiple sclerosis in 2009 and had problems in her lifetime getting insurance from a pre-existing condition, which was multiple sclerosis. And I'm a plaintiff's lawyer. So when you put all of that together, I am the demographic that has been ignored for far too long by Washington, D.C. And I am more like every Texan than John Cornyn and Ted Cruz. They don't have the struggles and have never lived through the types of struggles that most people in this state face. And as a result, they vote against us with every single vote. And I'm sick and tired of it. I'm ready to do something about it and to finally stand real strong with regular people and be a voice for regular people who don't have a voice. I'm running for Senate for single moms. I'm running for Senate for workers. I'm running for Senate for people who normally aren't excited to get out and vote. I'm running for Senate for people who don't have enough money to pay their bills and don't have enough money to afford health insurance and don't have enough money to put food on the table. And for regular workers who do what they're supposed to and work 40-hour weeks and still live below the poverty line. People who have to work multiple jobs just to pay their child care and to get their bills paid. You know, those are the groups of people that I'm running for U.S. Senate for, to be a voice for the majority of Texans who need it.
You know, Texas is one of the states that's got the highest incidence of child poverty and uninsured. What is your view on the Affordable Care Act?
So it's a very, very personal thing to me. Like I was just talking about a little while ago, in 2009, my mom passed away from multiple sclerosis. In her lifetime, she did struggle with finding insurance because of that pre-existing condition. And she went through a period in her life when she couldn't get the right medications that she deserved. She couldn't get the right health care that she deserved. She couldn't see the top quality doctors that she deserved to see because of her pre-existing condition and inaffordability of health care. You know, if she were here today, she would give every ounce of her energy to make sure that that law was implemented appropriately so that no one else would have to struggle the way that she did. And in this state, you're right, we have more uninsured people here than in anywhere else in the country. 6 million people. 1 million of them are children who don't have insurance and can't see doctors if they get sick or have to go to the emergency room. And then we've got a governor that refuses to expand Medicaid, so then the bills for these things are then passed off to municipalities. And it's sickening and it's ridiculous. And instead of addressing the problem, we have John Cornyn and Ted Cruz who voted against the Affordable Care Act and did ridiculous things like shut down the government and read Dr. Seuss books. I mean, who's going to fight for those 6 million people who need it? They're not. They've proven time and time again that they're not. So we need a fighter who's going to fight for those people. And I would make sure that everyone, regardless of how much money they've got in their pocketbook or in their checking account, what side of town they were born on, or the color of their skin, is afforded the right to dignified health care.
Let me ask you this. You know, where do you sit on the minimum wage? Should we increase it to at least $10.10 an hour or keep it the way it is?
Yes. Oh, no, we need to increase it immediately. In fact, when I'm elected to U.S. Senate, by the way, I'll be the first female Democratic U.S. Senator from the state of Texas. And I think that'll be a huge positive step in history for this state. This state has gone in the wrong direction. One direction that's been very inappropriate for this state is the direction of minimum wage. We've got more minimum wage workers in Texas than in any other state. That means we've got employers who are doing the very bare minimum possible. And $7.25 an hour, that's about $15,000 a year. That's it. And and that's before taxes. So someone who works full-time, 40 hours a week, does everything that they're supposed to, can still be underneath the poverty line because of the employers in this state who are doing the bare minimum. So as public servants in Washington, D.C., people up in Washington, D.C. need to make sure that if employers are going to be doing the bare minimum, the public servants need to make sure that the bare minimum is enough. And living under the poverty line when workers are doing what they're supposed to be doing is not enough. So, yeah, the very, very first thing I would do, my first bill that I would fight for would be an increase in the minimum wage for all workers, $10.10 an hour. And then we need to continue to increase and inflate that as time, pass by and things get more expensive. We need to continuously increase the minimum wage.
Texas has a big Tea Party out there. One of the things that the Tea Party says is government doesn't create jobs. It's the private sector that creates jobs, and we need to lower the taxes on the private sector businesses so that they can create more jobs. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I want to ask you this. Does government create jobs?
The Tea Party group has shown us what they can do, and it's not good enough at all. In fact, they're taking us in the wrong direction. and I disagree with their statements. You know, we need to make sure that the government does what it can to make sure that the bare minimum is enough. The government needs to make sure that companies and corporations are not rewarded with sending jobs overseas. We need to make sure that the government doesn't allow corporations to have tax loopholes so that corporations pay little to nothing in taxes while regular working families pay more percentage-wise. You know, the government does plenty and should be doing plenty to ensure everybody gets an equal shot at success. I mean, nobody looks at the government and thinks the government is going to hand out success. People have to work for it. But the point of a public servant is to serve the public, all of the public. I mean, at the end of the day, we might as well call John Cornyn and Ted Cruz and the rest of the Tea Party group corporate servants or insurance servants, because it seems to me that the only people they're voting for aren't people at all, but corporations and insurance companies. They are not serving the public. So we need to do everything that we can so that people who don't have the means to fly out to Washington, D.C. to lobby the public servants in Washington, D.C. have as much of a voice, if not more, because that's who we should be serving.
Let me ask you something. Texas is a big state, and it's a big hunting state. You know, it's a big sports state. What's your views on gun control and background checks?
I would support strong background checks and gun control. I understand that we have an amendment that guarantees people the right to bear arms, but I think that we need to do everything that we can to enforce and implement gun control. It seems to me that it shouldn't be easier to get a gun than it is to get health insurance.
And let's go back to health care for a minute. Do you support extending the Medicaid expansion? I don't think Texas did that. Or maybe they did. Did Texas do that?
No. Our governor refuses to expand Medicaid. And, yes, I do support expanding Medicaid. That's more of a state issue, but I would do everything that I can as a U.S. Senator to work with our next governor, Wendy Davis, to make sure that Medicaid is expanded in Texas.
Well, here's something that's not a state. Well, it turns out to be a state issue, but a lot of it is federal too. The unemployment benefits, you know, it is always political when they try to extend them. Do you support extending the unemployment benefits or keeping it the way it is?
No, I support extending unemployment benefits. I've been traveling across the state, and even before this campaign, I've been, you know, this state is filled with hard workers, with people who have found themselves in hard times and unemployed, and who are just being stamped upon and you know, treated with disrespect and disregard. We need to make sure that those people are treated with dignity. So, yes, I would support extending unemployment benefits. In fact, this morning I was reading a story that was posted about a family, a woman and her husband, and the husband is working 3 jobs, and the woman is unemployed even though she has a college degree and can't find the money to even shop at thrift stores, and goes to restaurants where her kids can eat free and cries because her 7-year-old boy is hungry. And she was screaming at him because he was hungry, and she's so frustrated. And that these unemployment benefits hurt families when they're cut. I mean, the human toll and the human effect of these decisions by people who are serving corporations and insurance companies in Washington, D.C. are unsurpassable and unforgivable. And we need to make sure that people are put first and recognize someone up there we need to have someone up there who recognizes the human toll and the human effect of every single vote. To me, it doesn't seem that hard to roll up your sleeves, read the bills before you pass them, figure out what kind of effect the judgment and the vote is going to be upon your state and the people who live in it, and do the right thing and vote with your values and vote with the public. We don't have that from John Cornyn. We don't have that from Ted Cruz. They have caused Texas to fall down in the state that we're in right now with such low graduation rates, with such high unemployment rates, with such high minimum wage workers, with such high uninsured rates. It's because of vote after vote after vote against people. So I know this is a longer answer than you wanted, but yes,
No, but that's fine. I mean, everything you say I agree with.
Yeah, I would support extending unemployment benefits.